It is no secret to any of my viewers that One Piece is my favorite shonen anime. It's one of the longest running shonen to exist, with some of the most creative world building and character designs I've ever seen. The story is rich with colorful ideas, people, places, powers, and other creative thoughts. Oda has proven in his creation there is so much to his world that we still haven't fully appreciated. It's easily one of my favorite anime, and I could do a whole series of videos on each individual Straw Hat member, their philosophies, their structure, and what I love and dislike about them. I probably won't do that because I'm sure most of my audience wouldn't care very much if I did, but hey, let me know in the comments if you'd like to see that. But Wisecrack here thinks that they understand the philosophy of One Piece and are ready to share it with all of us. Now, I watched a Wisecrack video not long ago about the nature of war, and it was such a bad take, I was doing backflips. I thought about doing a response video to that, but then I saw this. And I cannot ignore this. This video proves that Wisecrack will use anything to push their political agendas and narratives. They cherry pick and use manipulative language to twist the story of One Piece so it suits what they want. And in this video, I will be analyzing their arguments, exposing their agenda, and defending One Piece. Let's get started.
Ahoy! Michael here to finally cover one of the zaniest and most beloved animes to ever sail the Great Blue. That's right, One Piece. The story of Luffy, D. Monkey's quest to become king of the pirates is filled with unforgettable characters, incredible adventures, and a literal boatload of laughs. But is there something deeper happening beneath the chaotic waves? Specifically, can One Piece actually tell us something about organized society? Or even how to rebel against a society that sucks? We think so, and we'll explain in this Wisecrack edition on One Piece. How to live outside the law.
Now you need to note the phrasing here. Very specifically, they think One Piece is teaching us about how to rebel or resist a society or how to live outside of the rule of law. For anyone who has watched One Piece, you know there's far more to it than just lawlessness and rebellion. In fact, it goes far deeper than such things. But the phrasing needs to be given because it exposes their narrative and goal. They want to explain why organized society and nations are evil. This video, much like his war video, is designed to explain the evils of nationalism and government rule. Don't worry, we'll get to that, but keep your eyes open, my friends. This man is about to be as subtle as a train wreck.
And spoilers ahead for about a fifth of the total run of One Piece, but if you like this, let us know and we can make another video in the future. For the uninitiated, One Piece is a show about Luffy, an aspiring pirate king who rounds up a crew of misfits to sail the sea in pursuit of the titular One Piece treasure. These aren't your run-of-the-mill kooks either. Luffy is a rubber man, meaning he can stretch his body Mr. Fantastic style, a power he indulges to adorable effect at every opportunity. His pal Zoro is a pirate hunter turned pirate who wields not one, not two, but 3 swords. One is for his mouth, obviously. Nami reads relatively normal, but she's still a sneaky thief and kick-ass navigator. The chef, Sanji, is a horned-up nicotine fiend who loves fine dining, kicking ass. Their engineer, Usopp, is a pathological liar who has a tough time distinguishing his fantasies from reality. Oh, and their doctor is a magical deer who can talk. When we say misfits, we mean it. That said, maybe a magical deer doctor wouldn't be on my case about my cholesterol levels.
Why did you stop at Chopper? Dude, how far did you decide to go in the series? I'll bet you didn't go past the Alabasta arc. Why did you stop at Alabasta? You've left out Nico Robin, you've left out Frankie, you've left out Brooke. I can forgive leaving out Jinbei because he's only just recently joined the crew, but those other 3 are kind of major characters in the story. It's clear you haven't finished the show, but then again, maybe that's fine for you. After all, you gave us a pale description of each character, barely touch on their motivations or goals, and are only interested in getting to your narrative. Perhaps if you'd gone beyond Alabasta, you would know that many of your points don't hold water. But hey, let's keep going.
So much. And these aren't the only weirdos in this world. In fact, almost every single character is bizarre, and that's largely the point. The farther from the mainland you go, the stranger the adventures become. It's almost like when you're out at sea, the rules of land or the logic of terrain no longer apply. So why does this matter? We can answer with the help of bald icon, leather aficionado, and French philosopher Michel Foucault. Let's start with what Foucault thought about terrain and roads. In his essay of Other Spaces, Foucault explained that different spaces in modern society function as a network. That is, they exist in relation to one another. He writes that one could describe via the cluster of relations that allows them to be defined the sites of temporary relaxation, cafes, cinemas, beaches. Likewise, one could describe via its network of relations the closed or semi-closed sites of rest, the house, the bedroom, the bed, etc. This is to say that there are places where certain rules apply. You don't run around screaming in a movie theater, and you aren't getting into bed to do a jazzercise routine. These places have defined functions, and as such have defined rules. We see plenty of the expectations surrounding various kinds of land-based spaces in One Piece, like when Luffy is caught breaking the law, which is sort of his favorite hobby. Or when the crew is forced to confront the reality of farming, among other landlocked jobs, and the costs that come with them. However, Foucault points out that some spaces are free from these sorts of rules. These he calls heterotopia. And unlike what you might be thinking, heterotopias don't refer to a Buffalo Wild Wings next to a Gap outlet. Heterotopias are typically enclosed spaces, worlds within worlds, if you will. Fittingly, for our purposes, he identifies the boat as a heterotopia par excellence, describing the boat as a floating piece of space, a place without a place, that exists by itself, that is closed in on itself, and at the same time is given over to the infinity of the sea. When it comes to modern transportation, the way we move has become largely codified. We drive cars on government-paved roads at government-enforced speed limits and take our shoes off for the privilege of flying across the country in a rattling tin can with wings. But when you traverse the sea, you're a lot more free and unrestricted. Sure, there are laws, but as anyone who saw Captain Phillips knows, it's a lot easier to break them. A heterotopia's specific function and population creates a unique type of freedom for its inhabitants. As scholar Ibrahim Marazka explains, a heterotopia enables human agency because it allows the freedom to create other rationalities and to follow them. Think of how on the Going Merry, the crew can act like absolute maniacs.
こんな時に宴会やんないなんて嘘だぜびっくりした?あんたも大変な奴らの仲間になったもんよね
Or how they can derail their quest at any time to say, help reinstall a missing monarch, or bring a dragon colony back to life. As Luffy explains, he doesn't want to be Pirate King because he wants people to bow down to him. He simply wants to be free.
支配なんかしねえよこの海で一番自由なやつが海賊王だ
And life on the Going Merry enables that pure state of freedom.
Okay, so far so good. Freedom is a fundamental aspect of One Piece, but bear in mind that freedom does not mean freedom from rules, goals, or choice, because even while on the ship, you are at the mercy of the compass. Nami is often considered the second captain of the Straw Hats because she's the navigator. It doesn't matter what whims Luffy may cook up, or what goals strike his fancy. If they are to continue on the Grand Line and reach their inevitable goal, yes, there is a goal, they need direction, which means they are confined to at least some degree of a uniform system or direction. Nami gives directions based on the compass. These directions require the crew to manage the ship. The ship goes to an island where the crew pursues adventure. That's how it works. I should also mention, however, that the freedom of One Piece is not confined to the ship. Luffy does what he wants, wherever he wants. On Amazon Lily, when he was far away from his ship, he starts a literal party because he was pissed everyone was being too quiet.
You're all pissing me off! I've had enough of this! Why isn't anyone singing? And what's with you guys? Now listen up! You're not doing it right!
Shameful. Do they have no class at all?
The dude does as he likes. Also, you say breaking the law is his favorite pastime. No, because Luffy doesn't care about law. It's not his goal to seek out laws to break. He simply lives by his own rules, and if that means breaking the law because there are laws against what he wants to do, so be it. His favorite pastime is eating.
Even though he couldn't move after the last fight, he didn't want to miss dinner because he was sleeping. So he developed the sleep-eating technique you see here.
He's still asleep? Whoa, that's so cool!
However, I will grant this much. One of the defining aspects of One Piece is the understanding of freedom and liberty. But I'm sure you'll twist that up soon enough.
Heck, Luffy is completely clueless about and ambivalent towards money.
金なら俺持ってねえぞ。
And his life, like his corporeal form, is pretty malleable. Throughout the crew's adventures, they play a wide variety of roles and are able to go wherever they choose. Sometimes they're saviors. Sometimes they're criminals. Sometimes they're just trying to enjoy a dinner uninterrupted by pirate fights. And it's not just that they move around a lot and make zany friends. They also use this freedom to fight against oppressive powers that might seek to restrict them. The crew often finds itself in places run by corrupt governments, or taken over by the Marines, or even usurped by evil pirates who, not coincidentally, have often given up their seafaring gig for a life on land. Fittingly, Foucault wrote that in civilizations without boats, dreams dry up. Espionage replaces adventure, and the police the pirates. We see this literalized repeatedly in One Piece, which takes us to places where pirates have given up the freedom of heterotopias to impose a very not fun rule of law. Obviously, this isn't the only story where a crew of pirates represent radical freedom, but the cool thing about One Piece is how explicit it is. We see a world government that is corrupt and uses its power to oppress people and inflict harm on weaker communities. We see our heroes frequently matched up against these evil systems. And according to scholar Julian Reed, the freedom afforded to nomadic groups, like pirates, puts them in the best possible position to take on powerful enemies.
Now we're starting to see the hand tip. All right, 2 points. Firstly, pirates and nomadic groups are in the best position to take on oppressive governments. Name one pirate who successfully overthrew a country, government, or oppressive power structure in history. Methinks you reach a little too hard. Many nomadic groups will actually overthrow governments just to prop up their own. The Mongols, the Huns, the Hyksos, and others. Not only that, but nomadic cultures do have rules, structure, and governing laws. They are not just free spirits. Secondly, what about the instances where the crew fights to save a government? You used Alabasta and showed Crocodile while calling it an oppressive government, but in truth the government was just and kind. Crocodile, a pirate, was working to overthrow the government and form his own, but Luffy saved it. What about Drum Island? Luffy saved that fledgling government from the return of a king who would turn it into his own tyrannical monarchy. What about Fishman Island? Luffy saved the Fishman Kingdom from oppressive and evil gangsters of fishmen. What about Dressrosa? What about Skypiea? Luffy is not out to overthrow governments. Hell, he's never wanted to overthrow governments. He often just wants to save or help his friends. He saved Alabasta because he cared about Princess Vivi. He saved Fishman Island because he promised Yorohoshi he'd protect her and her father. He saved Drum Island because Wapol annoyed him. And he declared war on the world government because they took Robin from him.
I don't think the government's gonna let you off that easy after you burn down their flag.
Whatever. It doesn't feel like a big deal to me. The only reason I did any of that was because they took our friend and I wanted her back.
Want to know the great thing about Luffy? He doesn't care about who's in power, who the leaders are, or how corrupt they are. Luffy said it himself, I want to be free. Free to do what I want. He did not say, I want to overthrow the power structures that would oppress people. If the whim suits him, or those structures stand in his way or his friends, then yeah, he'll stop them. But Luffy isn't actively seeking the destruction of those institutions.
Wisecrack favorites Gilles Deleuze and Felix Guattari drew an important distinction between two visions of war. There's war as a state apparatus that uses violence to control its people, intimidate enemies, or be straight-up jerks. And then there's the war machine, i.e. the eternal human impulse to struggle, sometimes violently, for the sake of differentiation. That is, a struggle in which people want to affirm themselves on their own terms rather than in relation to some opposing force. It's basically the opposite of what philosophers call dialectical thought, which always defines two opposites precisely in their opposition to one another, i.e. hot and cold, up and down, Taco Bell and Pepto-Bismol. As Reed explains, Deleuze thought that when we define war as an instrument of only the state apparatus, we create limitations. Because war exists both inside and outside the domain of political sovereignty. Basically, Deleuze thinks you don't need to be a nation to wage a war. In fact, he uses evidence from ethnography to argue that nomadic tribes often waged war not to protect a state, but to stop a centralized state from forming in the first place. In this view, war has been and still can be a valuable form of resistance against state control.
Again, we're seeing your agenda on screen. See, war is good when it's against the state. Fight oppressive power structures. Countries are bad. We should prevent countries from forming because they'll oppress us. Not only is this not the goal of One Piece, but it's laughable as a philosophy. What about wars waged to protect countries or people? World War II comes to mind. Several countries banding together to stand against an evil dictator who threatened the world. Is that all just state-sanctioned war to oppress? But what's really hilarious here is that you clearly don't understand how nomadic tribes often worked. During the Germanic migration periods during the end of Rome, you had several tribes that migrated and sought better land. They then settled and formed their own kingdoms, such as Visigothic Spain, Ostrogothic Italy, Vandal Africa, or the Mongolian Empire. There are far more examples of nomads overthrowing a state to establish their own rather than just to go back to their nomadic lifestyle. Typically, when nomadic warriors attack a state and didn't take it over, it was usually a raid to fight for resources. You've created this false narrative that these nomad war machines existed only to fight the state because they do not belong to the state and will always be righteous in what they do. They wish to overthrow oppressive power structures for the sake of goodness and justice, but in reality, that's usually not what happens. And then, of course, we don't even need to look at history. We can just look at One Piece itself. In the Alabasta arc, a civil war is going on. The royal army is about to go to war with the rebel army. Why? Because the rebel army thinks the king has been oppressing its people. But has he? No. He's been framed by Crocodile, a pirate. So it appears that the king has been oppressing his people. Crocodile used this framing device to turn the people against their country.
You know what? I've had to make so many moves to be able to get to this point. The sabotage to inflame the citizens, manipulating the royal army. If you listen closely, I wager you can hear the howls of the kingdom, and they all scream the same thing. Protect Alabasta. Protect Alabasta. Protect Alabasta. Stop it! It's heartbreaking, isn't it? Their love for their kingdom will be what destroys it.
When the truth was revealed, both the rebel and royal armies realized they'd all done terrible things. It was the wise words of the king who helped to calm them all and bring peace back. Luffy and the others were primarily there to fight Crocodile and his forces, not to help the rebels or to fight the royals. In fact, they were protecting the royal family. Kind of funny how your own philosophy falls apart when we compare it to the anime you think upholds it.
And we recently did a video arguing that the human impulse for war isn't really that natural, so be sure and check that out for a different perspective.
Yeah, that video where you argued that war wasn't that common in our history until we formed nation states and governments, even though in this video you just pointed out that several wars were fought to prevent the rising of nation states, so apparently there were wars fought before that time, but I digress. That video that tells us that wars have often been created by nationalistic ideals and the desire to stand up for imaginary labels and lines on a map like countries, nations, and borders. That video where you contradicted yourself twice by saying wars on a grand scale were rare before the 17th century, but conveniently left out China, Rome, Greece, Persia, and various other empires in warring time periods. Sir, you're either a globalist or you're an anarcho-communist. You hate nationalism. You think that because lines are drawn on a map that people only fight with each other because of them. Want to know why wars happen? I'll tell you why. Usually the reason was for resources. One group has something another group wants, so there's a fight to take it. Sometimes wars are just, sometimes they're unjust. Sometimes wars happen to end wicked ideas. Like, why do you think the Civil War was fought? For just lines on a map? For nationalism? Or maybe to end an anarchic practice and worldview to reunify a fractured people? Why do you think World War II was fought? Just because we're just so gosh darn in love with our countries? Or because an evil man threatened the world and we stopped it? I'm not going to say nationalism isn't a component of some wars, but saying that's the only reason that we fight is foolish.
Because of this, Deleuze sees the war machine as inherently antagonistic to the state apparatus, though the state may try its darndest to appropriate it. Deleuze ultimately believed that the war machine could be transformative and offer alternatives to the state, which he thought limited possibilities.
Well, of course he did, because he's a Marxist. He follows in the footsteps of Karl Marx, believing that capitalism and the nationalist model was in need of destruction. It's fitting you'd use him as your source.
Take the opposing ways that states and nomads navigate space. States organize it, determine ownership of it, and place other arbitrary restrictions on it. which is why I'm no longer welcome at Yosemite National Park. It's a long story.
What, were you telling the squirrels to rise up against the evil and oppressive grizzly bear overlords?
In contrast, nomads live freely without territorializing the spaces they inhabit. States might define nomads in relation to themselves, but nomads driving the war machine are striving for a pure affirmation that differentiates them from the state.
Oh my gosh, you are trying way too hard. Notice everything you had to really squeeze in to make that statement work. Nomads live freely without territorializing the spaces they inhabit. But that's because they're constantly moving. They do not live in one space at all times. But not everyone lives a nomadic lifestyle, dude. And nomads driving the war machines are striving for pure affirmation. Then could you explain the Huns? The Mongols? Most of these tribes and peoples were nomadic in nature, but they waged war for personal gain and for power as well. Were these wars merely for affirmation? Dude, you need to stop talking history. You don't know what you're talking about. Hell, the Mongols actually ended up taking over and establishing their own governments. Still think nomads only exist to fight for affirmation and not for power, land, and resources? In fact, I really like how in this graphic you use, you show that the nomads are cowboys and cowgirls. You know, you know that cowboys and ranchers who didn't own any property. Oh wait, no, they did own property. Usually large strips of land for their cattle to graze. And they would defend their cows from hustlers and thieves. Guess they did stake some claim on some property there, didn't they?
We see the nomadic war machine throughout One Piece. Pretty much every narrative arc is resolved with a big fight, with the stakes almost always being the freedom of a character, or an entire community, or sometimes just a cute dragon. Like the time Luffy and Co take on Arlong, or fight to liberate Alabasta.
Whoa, very slippery wording there. Liberate Alabasta? No. They went to save Alabasta. There is a difference. To liberate implies that it was being ruled by an oppressive government or regime and they were going to rescue it from its government. But that's not the case. They came to defeat the one who was trying to take over the country. They saved Alabasta from Crocodile, the man trying to take it over. And they saved the ruling king, in essence, fighting for the sake of the nation and its government. It's almost like you're twisting the truth to sell to your audience. In fact, you want to think about this for a second. You could argue that Crocodile and his Baroque Works organization were just nomads trying to overthrow a state government. Wow, maybe, just effing maybe, sometimes the nomadic overthrow of a country is not just done for righteous causes. Maybe it's done because those nomads who are fighting the government might want to insert their own government instead. What a thought!
With it, this peaceful country will become a military power to be reckoned with under my rule.
Your rule? You're not this country's monarch.
Oh, but I soon will be. And once I'm on the throne, it will be easy to bring all the pirates in this area under my umbrella.
And this is a key way in which the anarchic nature of the Going Merry's crew can teach us about the world. They are violent, but their violence maintains a code. And it's nomadic in that it's often directed against the state.
Vagrantly false. Like 100% false. Beyond false. Dishonest. Manipulative. You are a liar, sir. You keep using the word nomadic, and I allowed it because the word nomadic literally means roaming from place to place aimlessly, frequently, or without a fixed pattern of movement. I allow this because this could be applied to the One Piece crew loosely. However, now you have fully exposed your agenda by arguing nomads actively resist the state. Wrong. This is actually beyond wrong, not only in what nomads are, but what One Piece is about. Luffy isn't always fighting the state. He isn't fighting for the liberation of the world or for the people. He does what he wants. He fought Arlong because he made Nami cry.
Luffy, help me. That's for making our navigator cry.
He fought Crocodile to save Vivi.
Because none of us want Vivi to die! Helping each other is what friends do! And that's why none of us will leave her behind or quit fighting you! As long as she doesn't give up on her country, neither will we!
He fought Lucci because he took Robin from him.
Whatever. It doesn't feel like a big deal to me. The only reason I did any of that was because they took our friend and I wanted her back.
He fought Foxy because Foxy was going to take away his crew.
I won't let you take a single member of my crew!
Even if it kills me!
He has never fought to overthrow corrupt state power structures for the sake of self-affirmation. He doesn't need to. He's never needed to. His nomadic lifestyle isn't defined by him fighting people. It's defined by his power to make his own choices for his own reasons and to his own ends. You lying punk.
They don't belong to a military structure that serves the needs and demands of the sovereign. What's more, remember how our friends live in a heterotopia? That gives them the ability to see outside the rules and norms of organized society. As a result, they aren't confined to a single worldview. You could call them psychic nomads. That doesn't mean they're wanderers with telekinesis. Psychic nomadism simply means that you pick and choose from a great big buffet of worldviews, religious, political, ethical, while rejecting aspects of those views that you don't find as tasty.
Ugh, are you kidding me? That sounds like some of the most cowardly and flippant philosophy I've ever heard of. Yes, in real life, most humans, we like to take and cherry pick things that we like from different ideologies, religions, and sources. I get that. But in storytelling, quite often you need consistency. Imagine if I said, you know what, I believe in Christianity and how it teaches us to love ourselves, but I don't really like the forgive other people part because I don't want to forgive them. That's dumb. Or, oh, I love communism. Except for the parts about its history where a lot of people starved. I can leave that part out. Or, I love the concept of doing unto others as I would want them to do unto me. Unless that person is a loser. I can bully them, that's fine. Do you see how inherently inconsistent, cowardly, and stupid that is? And let's actually explore that. Does the crew act that way? Does Luffy take from worldviews and dismiss as he likes? I'd say he seems pretty consistent. Luffy believes in freedom to do as he wants. To live as he wants. Your dreams are your own, and no one should stop you from pursuing them. Does he ever tell anyone to stop following their dreams? Does he ever abandon his dreams? How about another one? Luffy tells Vivi that simply avoiding conflict isn't going to solve anything, and sometimes you have to take on your problems head on and confront the enemy at your door rather than appeal to others to help you. Luffy has always confronted his problems head on, just in that manner. When has Luffy or any of his crew abandoned their principles that they hold to? Has Chopper ever abandoned an injured person he knew he could help? Has Sanji ever denied food to someone who he knew was hungry? When has that ever happened? When has the crew ever established themselves as a belief system but not held to it?
For example, Luffy embraces the violence and chaos of the pirate worldview, but rejects the cruelty and selfishness. And Chopper views the world through the lens of magic, being a talking deer and all, while still abiding by the science of medicine.
What? Okay, first, Luffy rejects the cruelty because he doesn't believe that's what true pirates are like. It's not that he says, I like piracy, but I don't like this aspect of piracy. He doesn't think cruelty is a part of piracy. Nothing about piracy means you must be cruel or evil. The pirates he was exposed to in his early years showed him that that's not necessary to be a pirate. Many pirates behave that way because they believe freedom gives them the right to take what they want and live cruel lives. But Luffy is not cruel by nature. He still wants freedom, but he just wants to live free without adhering to cruelty because he himself is not cruel. He said himself after his fight with Kuro that pirates don't act that way. Pirates shouldn't act cruel. Pirates should just want to live free, not take from others or hurt other people or hurt their own crew. Just to live free, because that's the way the pirates acted that he was exposed to. It's not like he looked at the definition of piracy and said, I like this, but I don't like that. I'll keep this and leave that out. No, he never knew that that other part was an inherent part of piracy because he never thought it was. That's not a rejection of a worldview. That's simply understanding the nature of being a pirate from his own perspective. And as for Chopper, magic is an inherent part of One Piece. How can you say that he sees the world through a lens of magic, but still accept science? Science and magic are both accepted in this world. He rejects nothing. He adheres to all of it. Everyone does. What are you talking about? And the best part of all of it is all of this that you're talking about is not easily injected into modern day real world discussion points. Oh man, I'm getting a headache.
The result can be, as you might guess, somewhat chaotic. Sometimes the crew has to save a kingdom and install a rightful ruler. Sometimes they have to get rid of rulers altogether. It all depends on the scenario and on who happens to be on board the ship. Rather than fighting one political ideology with another, they're fighting against ideology altogether and defending some type of formless freedom or self-actualization. They don't want to exist in relation to the state, they just want to exist.
関係ねえんだぞ。王様だろうと神様だろうと。誰が偉くたって偉くなくたって関係ねえんだ。 俺は海賊だからな。
It is hilarious to me that you are making this argument. Your argument seems to come down to Luffy and the crew are not a political ideology fighting against another political ideology. They are pure anarchical freedom fighting against political ideology itself. They just want to exist. They don't want to exist within the state. They just want to exist, and they want to live free. And therefore, they will tear down political ideologies and structures that they confront so that they can continue to live free. And then you use this clip of Luffy telling Wapol that I'll kick your butt regardless of who you think you are because I'm a pirate. Dude, this shows me you really, really missed the point of One Piece. You really missed it. Okay, so firstly, their motivation is not to tear down the state so they can live free. They live free in spite of the state. If they truly wanted to tear down governments so that they could live free, they would not have made friends with the Alabasta royal family and King Cobra Nefertari. They wouldn't have fought to put him back on the throne. In fact, it would have made far more sense for them to just let Crocodile take over, because he would have led a kingdom of pirates. Why would they help Vivi and Cobra if they just hated political ideology? They have made friends with King Neptune of Fishman Island. They made friends with the King of Dressrosa. They have made friends with governmental bodies and governmental leaders. They've made friends with Marines. They're enemies. Want to know something fascinating about Luffy? Anyone can be his friend. Anyone can be his ally. He's not picky. That's the essence of true freedom. To stand with who he wants and to fight against who opposes him. It has nothing to do with political ideology. It has nothing to do with governmental regulation or governmental leadership. It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with, I will live freely. If you try to stop me from living freely, I will stand against you. That scene with Wapol, he was saying that it doesn't matter if you're a king, because Wapol was walking around going, I'm the king, I'm the king, I'm the king. And Luffy's pointing out, it doesn't matter to me if you're king. It doesn't matter to me if you're nobody. You've pissed me off. I'm going to kick your butt. It's not, you know what, it would actually support your argument if he said, yeah, I'm kicking your butt because you're king. You're a bad guy. But he doesn't say that. He says, it doesn't matter to me who you are. You've pissed me off. You've hurt my friends. You've attacked me. I'm going to kick your butt. You think that that scene really supports your argument? It actually hurts your argument because it shows Luffy's not out to destroy political ideology or political leaders. He's out to do what he wants. You just don't get it. You really don't get it.
The key consistency, though, is that the crew resist the monopoly over violence granted to those in power, in large part thanks to their relative egalitarianism. Now, of course, we're not saying that you should buy a boat and sail around the Florida Panhandle to beat up the Coast Guard. But if that's your bag, who are we to stop you?
And that right there proves to me, on a fundamental level, you don't understand One Piece. That right there, got it. Okay, yeah, I'm sure you were joking. I'm sure you were saying that probably as a big joke. We're not saying you should hop on a boat and sail around Florida and beat up the Coast Guard. That's not what we're saying, but if you want to do that, who are we to stop you? Here's the thing, I'm sure you were joking, but here's the reality of it. Even in a joking context, that shows not only your goal, but also what you think One Piece is about. That it's sailing around fighting people of power or fighting military functions in power, fighting the state. That's what One Piece is all about. If you were to explain One Piece in just 2 sentences to someone who'd never watched it, your response would be, it's about a group of pirates who want to live free. They live free by beating up people in power. That is essentially what you think it's about. And that is not what One Piece is about. It has never been about that. It has never been about that. And the fact you think it is disturbing. Luffy would actually hate a person who sailed around just beating up people for no reason. Luffy would actually hate that kind of person. The kind of person who actively seeks out harm for other people for the sake of harm.
You're a pirate. Why are you helping a bunch of Marines? Quit interfering. This is an internal matter.
I'm familiar with your type. My captain hates guys like you.
Luffy has made friends with the Marines. He's made friends with governmental bodies. He's made friends with these people. People that you say that he should stand against by nature of the fact that he wants freedom. You say that he takes away the monopoly of violence held by people in power, but he doesn't exchange that by making himself a person in power who monopolizes on violence. He is not seeking to hurt people just to hurt people because they are people in power. He hurts people who hurt him. If someone picked up a boat, sailed out, and sought out the Coast Guard just to beat them the hell up, he would be the very kind of person that Luffy would stand against, because you're a bully treating other people like crap because of what job they take or where they are in the world. Remember, Luffy doesn't care who you are. If you hurt people for the sake of hurting people, regardless of whether you're government, pirate, marine, or nobody at all, you are his enemy. You do not get One Piece. It's actually scary what you think it's about.
But you can still take a valuable lesson from One Piece. Modern social movements are often under a lot of pressure to strive for ideological consistency when they resist state power. In contrast, the One Piece crew doesn't stake a consistent position in their resistance. The way they fight back doesn't always have to look the same or uphold the same values. Rather, they use their flexibility and their position as residents of a heterotopia to change themselves to fit the crisis at hand. This mutability as a form of resistance is very literally displayed in Luffy, who can stretch his body in all sorts of forms as he fights. The crew's mobility, both literally and ideologically, is its own form of power. And maybe more importantly for our swashbuckling homies, it's a form of positive freedom. That is, a freedom which is more about freedom for rather than a freedom from some type of oppression or control. In this way, One Piece shows us the value of movement and flexibility, and the unique power of the pirate and the nomad. These lifestyles that are able to adjust, change, and accommodate new circumstances aren't just excuses to wear cool hats and bling, but are in fact ways to more effectively think about ourselves as political and social actors. But what do you guys think? Does the crew show us the power of the nomadic war machine?
No. And the fact you think it does shows you didn't watch the full show. You didn't care to. And you wanted to apply political ideology to a show that had nothing to do with it. That's why you didn't go past the Alabasta arc. That's why you didn't go that far. Because you didn't want to. You didn't feel it was necessary. You took the piece that you needed and then said, I'll run with it. At its core, One Piece is about pursuing dreams. Luffy dreams of being the Pirate King. Zoro dreams of becoming the world's best swordsman. Nami dreams of charting the whole world. Sanji dreams of finding the All Blue. Chopper dreams of healing the world's sickness. Usopp dreams of overcoming his own cowardice. Frankie dreams of sailing his own ship around the world. Brook dreams of returning to his long-lost friend Laboon. And Robin dreams of discovering the lost history of the world. And as these people pursue their dreams, various other individuals cross their paths for good or for ill. When it is good, the crew connects to them. They feel like part of the crew. Vivi's an excellent example. They feel a bond, because in this world, dreams are often laughed at or seen too big to pursue. But the Going Merry and its crew give a hope to the darkness that dreams are not beyond reality. Thus, they form friends who share their view. This means they will encounter those who oppose it. Rival pirates, the Marines, governments, monsters, or just each other at times. Because where there are those that dream, there will be those who try to stop you from dreaming. That has been and always will be the goal of One Piece. The pursuit of dreams. Gold Roger said it himself.
Destiny, fate, dreams. These unstoppable ideals are held deep in the heart of man. As long as there are people who seek freedom in this life, these things shall not vanish from the earth.
Your nonsense spoken is laughable, but what makes it even funnier is it shows how little you actually understand One Piece. You think that because most of the crew's enemies are government bodies or pirates who oppress, you think it's a message for us to take and use it as an excuse for anarchy and violence. You try to say that it's okay if we use open rebellion and political activism as long as it's not always consistent, because One Piece isn't always consistent. Forgetting for a moment that it's a freaking cartoon with magical elements and is in no way associated with the real world. But I digress. You claim claim that nomads and pirates are a great example to follow for overthrowing existing ideologies, governments, and the state. Your agenda is clear as day, but the best part is your view is more similar to a different One Piece character entirely than any of the Straw Hat crew. Your ideology, your outlook is more like Blackbeard, the main antagonist. Blackbeard believes in freedom too, but unlike Luffy, he has no set ideology or belief structure that directs him. He too is nebulous and is totally okay with stealing power or adopting new abilities for his own goals, shifting the very definition of his power and even his position, happy to play a role that suits him like warlord until he needs to abandon it to do something else. That's you. You see the nomad, the free, the liberators as the good guys. They overthrow the big bad state with its rules and regulations who limit you. But it's not about fighting with ideologies or beliefs, because by saying that you must acknowledge some ideologies are flawed or better. But now, it's just fighting ideology altogether. You don't understand One Piece. You barely watched it. You skipped over it. You ignored the later parts. You didn't want anything that might hurt your narrative. I love One Piece because it encouraged us to climb on the ship of the Straw Hats for an adventure and to pursue the dreams that I never thought I wanted to be fulfilled. But you don't see it that way. You don't see it as an adventure about discovering your dreams or fighting for the things you love. You see it as you see the world. Just another tool to spread your twisted ideologies and beliefs. Get off the ship. You don't need to be on it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Take care.